the scripted plays for these f***ing teams in FIBA. It's like 5 different actions to get to one last thing that's what you're actually looking for. That to me was the craziest thing to watch.
So NBA is a players league, while in Europe it's all about the coaches. At least that's the general belief. People think coaching in the NBA is more about positively inspiring your players, while in Europe there is way more tactics and of course way more crazy shouting.
What the fuck is this, man? We end the march. Go 2 steps into the passing lane.
But is it really that simple? Let's look at the main differences between the coaching in the NBA and Europe. Spoiler alert, there are many, as basketball played here and there are 2 completely different things. We are going to start with the coach and player relationship question. In my eyes, NBA coaches could be even called CEOs to a certain degree. They have to care more about managing personalities, keeping everyone happy and motivated, while they have assistant coaches responsible for guiding offense and defense. In Europe, on the other hand, coaches are way more expressive, often shouting and bashing their players in the middle of timeouts. Best example, the greatest ever European coach, Željko Obradović.
Now you ask me what to play, huh? So all the lights, you wait for me. Okay, all the lights, and all of you.
But why we see such a difference, positive in the NBA and negative in Europe? First of all, NBA is one of a few leagues where, from players' perspective, your boss is literally below your pay grade. Coaches looking from above and shouting to players who earn more than them and have massive egos hardly works. Don't you agree? Those same superstars often also have longer contracts than their coaches, and it is a known fact that most coaches are fired before the player is traded. This creates a situation in which players, and especially the stars, hold more power in teams' decisions. Usually, those players are international stars with their individual brands known around the world. They are also generational talents on court that have been under the spotlight since young age. Teams don't want to lose them. This has been visible especially lately with superstars who tend to express their disagreements with coaches more publicly than before. Think of Giannis or Brook Lopez visibly frustrated on court with Adrian Griffin, Jonathan Kuminga publicly saying he lost faith Steve Kerr will allow him to reach his full potential, or Shams reporting there is a deepening disconnect between the Lakers core and coach Darvin Ham after a losing streak. Oh, and let's not forget KD and Kyrie drama in Brooklyn with Steve Nash. Now, talking only nicely to your superstars won't necessarily get you the respect. It is more about building a personal relationship. Current EuroLeague coach Erdem Can, who has NBA assistant coach experience with the Utah Jazz, recently mentioned this is where Europe could take a page from the NBA. He said each assistant in the NBA keeps in touch with players' families, follows their growth and development, thus knowing the points to capture in communication with them. This way, it becomes just 2 people who share their life rather than one commanding and giving orders. Even if you have bossy nature later, with this method, players understand and accept it. That's exactly what we have in Europe. Aggressive way of communication, cuss words, and even substitutions after only one bad moment. Hell, some coaches even went further and tried hitting their own player. Or this legendary clip where current Hawks player Bogdan Bogdanović gets choked.
I sada Vujošević.
Now, don't get me wrong, even Europe is going away from this over-the-top coaching, but it is still way more intense than the NBA. There is a bunch of reasons why it's possible here. First of many being, coaches are the ones who usually have longer contracts. That might sound strange if you are an NBA fan, but only a few superstars in Europe have 3 or 4-year deals. I know it might sound crazy, but 1-year deals are completely normal even for starters. There is no draft in the summer too, so teams have no incentive whatsoever to lose or to grow younger players. All of this lead to win now mentality for everyone. There had to be a reason for why the official EuroLeague slogan is "Every game matters." The competition does have a few low-budget teams that are at the bottom 3 every year, Hey Asvel and Alba Berlin, but 16 out of 18 clubs are competitive each season. Coaches' reputation depends on results only, thus we see them coaching their asses off off in every game, every possession. Another important factor is that the gap between the best players and role players in the EuroLeague is not as huge as in the NBA. This gives more flexibility for the head coach. Even if they bench their best player or he gets injured, there's still a solid chance of winning the game. All of this gives the upper hand for the coach to decide who to play. That's where we see more intensity. If the coach is unhappy, he can easily express it, leaving it for the player to deal with it.
The game and the court, no here, there, man. Look here!
Now, I'm not stating shouting wins you games and NBA coaches should do more of that. Not at all. Take, for example, the most passionate guy in Europe, Željko Obradović. You have definitely seen at least one of his videos. But it definitely wasn't his emotions or bossy nature that won the titles alone. He's one of the smartest coaches ever in the whole world, as Greg Popovich has mentioned stealing plays from him or constantly chatting during the summers, discussing strategies. Yes, such a style helped him to get the respect, but it was more about his strategy, decision-making, and the knowledge of X's and O's that made him the GOAT. So you might ask, which relationship style is better, the European one or the American one? What I believe is that shouting could be extremely beneficial in short term, but it's not how you grow young talents or create relationship long term. And since the NBA is a long-term game, that's why we rarely see it there. Some players feel the lack of it though. However, it is no surprise that such comment came from a guy who grew up in Europe. Last summer, during an interview for the Turkish media, Rocket star Alperen Şengün mentioned that he asked Stephen Silas to be yelled at or cussed out after he makes a mistake. Why would he want that, you might ask? He argued that it makes him think about the mistake more and he doesn't take it personal because he has seen it since his young days. Now, there have been instances of European or old school style coaching tries in the NBA as well, but those, to no surprise, did not go very well at all. For example, PJ Carlesimo. His coaching philosophy has always been that he must be the hardest on his best player because that player sets the tone for the rest of the team. Now, I fully agree that your best player sets the tone for the entire team, but such strict coaching style didn't fly well with Lateral Sprewell, who tried choking him, or in Seattle, where he was fired after only 13 games, going 1-12 with young KD. Sometimes it's that simple. NBA players have more power and they're not used to yelling. Even current players who have seen basketball on both sides of the ocean confirm this.
I think it's just a very different approach to how to coach and how to just approach the game, I would say.
However, there are a few coaches that manage to pull it off. Use a certain tone and maintain respect. Prime example, the Spurs and Greg Popovich. But as always, there is a reason of why the Spurs actually made it work. Listen to this fragment of an interview.
The Spurs they don't get knuckleheads, they don't get clowns, they don't get guys with huge egos, they get guys who have to do what they're told to do.
The only reason it worked for Pop was because his best player, Tim Duncan, took the harsh criticism. If your best player does it, you follow. Also, this mentality is not for everyone and it doesn't work for most of the time, but when it does, it can create amazing things. Even European coaches are going away from extreme methods and are trying to find the right balance, so we might see more similarities with the NBA coaches in this category in the near future. Okay, now what about the actual tactics in the NBA and Europe? Is it really more simple in the NBA? The same FS coach Erdem Can had quite a colorful quote when asked about the differences between the two, comparing the NBA to a Hollywood film and EuroLeague with a modern art movie. Let's look at some of the decisions coaches have to make. NBA coaches rely on preset rotations. The roles are clear and it's super hard for the bench players to get starter minutes. In Europe, coaches have way more flexibility. The gap of talent isn't that big and contracts are short, so if you're playing better for 5 games straight than the starter, you will carve your way into the starting lineup. Other teams like Fenerbahce, for example, have free centers who offer diverse skill sets and get 10 to 20 minutes each in every game. Now, I will ask you this: how many times have you seen such a situation in the NBA? European fans often emphasize individual game plans for every EuroLeague match as an argument over the NBA coaches. But is it really possible for the NBA coaches to do so while also getting players to remember the tiny details when you are playing 2 nights in a row? Teams have 82 regular season matchups. They simply choose one main defensive tactic for the regular season, depending on the personnel they have, and they live with it. It doesn't really matter much if it's going to get burned by Steph Curry for one game.
Away as Curry knocks down another three, his third three-pointer of the first period.
In the last couple of years, EuroLeague clubs are on par with the number of total games teams play in domestic and international competitions, but the season is longer by 2 months, increasing the amount between the games. Those 2 to 3 extra days to prepare is the key here. When you add the roster flexibility on top, as well as coaches having more power because of short-term players' contracts, and you get the beauty in the European game. The beauty in which you see some teams playing different defensive tactics in each game, or varying between hedging, switching, and dropping in the same match. The way NBA is structured, it makes it pretty impossible for the coaches to have this much flexibility. They usually will wait for 5, 10, or even 15 games to make a radical adjustment, just as Adrian Griffin went back to the old drop defense with Brook Lopez after having him higher for the start of the season. Also, NBA head coaches are not going to bench starters who earn 10 millions plus for a guy on a minimum deal just because he's better in switch all defense in the regular season. It's simply not how NBA works. At the same time, this is one of the reasons why we see these scoring outbursts recently with Embiid and Luka going for 70 plus, while 50-point games are the new 30. There were attempts from the Spurs and the Hawks to mix up the defense on both superstars, but since the players are not familiar with those defenses, they were executed at a very low level. Truth to be told, both San Antonio and Atlanta ranked near bottom in the defensive rating this season, strongly impacting these legendary performances as well.
It's through the defenders, powers up, score it! 72 for number 77.
So to finish off, European fans saying NBA coaches don't coach is a nonsense. Even the fanciest after timeout plays with 3 or 4 misdirection plays can be found in the NBA. You just need to know where to look at. Yes, Steve Kerr didn't run many of those with Team USA, but that's not the whole picture. And the best example is the playoffs. With actual preparation time from 2 to 4 days between games, you see different matchups, different schemes in each game, as well as active mismatch hunting while trying to hide the flaws of your own players. However, with the way the regular season and the NBA itself is structured, it highly diminishes the amount of flexibility and impact one NBA coach can have. But that does not make coaching in the NBA any easier. So what do you guys think? Do you still think European coaches are better? Or should the NBA do something to empower coaches more? Let's discuss it in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one.